Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome again for another week of your, I was going to say annual, that doesn't make sense. Weekly is not annual, weekly is weekly. Welcome to your weekly dose of your Geek Therapy, where all us geeks get together, huddle around the radio, or the podcast, speaker, the Bluetooth speaker, headphones, or maybe you're watching on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, you may have noticed an increase in video quality because I'm finally using my DSLR to record these radio shows, which is great. It's a Nikon D3100. It's been out for a few years now. The reason why I have not been using this camera recently, or, recently, I've only just started to video record these shows. The reason I haven't been using the camera to record these shows up until now, that's a better way to put it, is that for some reason, and the reason I will get into in a second, the video recording length is capped to 10 minutes, or should I say was capped to 10 minutes, or should I even better say, out of the box, it comes capped at 10 minutes. So what I was able to do was get some quote-unquote hacked firmware and update the firmware of my camera to allow me to record video clips up to, on the D3100, up to 17 minutes and like 37 seconds. And that's important because I record radio segments, and radio segments, my segments at least, routinely go over 10 minutes. So it does me no good to have video clips limited to only 10 minutes in length. Because just last week, I know for a fact I had a couple 13-minute segments. 13 is more than 10, if we can be math geeks for a second. Anyways, so you might be wondering, you spend all that money on a camera, and again, the Nikon D3100, I bought myself. Actually, it was a gift a few years ago. It's a great camera. It's an awesome camera. It's an awesome entry-level DSLR. Takes great pictures, great videos. I mean, you're looking at it right now. For the real video nerds and camera nerds out there, I am recording at 1080p, 24 frames a second. I think the bitrate's like 20 megabytes. But anyways, so not like full. The bit stream can be higher, but by default, it's not above 20, which is good because the SD card that I have in the camera cannot write faster than 20 megabytes per second. Anyways, why did I get some hacked firmware and update my firmware to the hacked firmware? Again, that was to get the 17-minute video clips. But why was it capped at 10? There's no reason. There's all sorts of rumors you might hear or might read if you're into digital photography, digital filmmaking, that the reason why the video clips can't be more than 10 minutes in length is A, because you might hear that the sensor will get too hot. So to save the sensor, to keep the sensor cool, the image sensor cool, they capped it at 10 minutes. That's not it. That is not an issue. Keeping the image sensor cool in that regard, recording video for at least the Nikon is not an issue. You might think, oh, well, maybe it's because the FAT32 file system caps files at 4 gigs. That's not the case. This memory card is the exFAT system, which allows file sizes over 4 gigabytes. That's not the case either. The real reason why DSLRs have capped video record lengths is stupid. And it originates in Europe. I'm not saying Europe is stupid, but they do have some regulations that are funky, just like the United States has regulations that are funky. And by funky, I mean stupid. In Europe, there's an extra duty charged to cameras that can record over certain lengths of video at one time. By duty, I mean tax. It's like a 5.4% tax on video cameras. So a lot of these DSLRs also record video, but their main purpose is just still photography, but they have the video feature built into it. So the manufacturer, to avoid paying that 5 point whatever percent tax on their cameras, they, out of the box, limit the video clip size to 10 minutes. It's dumb. I know it's dumb. The other reason is they don't want to cannibalize their own sales of video cameras. So again, they put that time limitation on it. It's all dumb. United States does not have such regulations against the video clip length of point and shoot or DSLR cameras. But if you're manufacturing, if you're Nikon, you're not going to ship. You cut costs. You don't spend so much to ship out two separate versions. They don't want to send out a US version of the Nikon D3100 versus a European version. No, they just keep it simple. They say, okay, in Europe it's capped to 10 minutes, so all of our cameras will be capped to 10 minutes all over the world. So that's when you have these hackers, these programmers, which are well, I'm not a hacker. I've never really attempted as much. I grew up entering command lines in DOS, C:\dir/P, so I could see the directory of the C drive, and I could page the screen, so I could find my doom.exe. Anyways, yeah, these hackers, these programmers have cracked the firmware to allow at least the D3100 to record up to 17 minutes and 57 seconds, which is perfect for me recording these radio segments. On other better models, that time limit is just lifted completely. There's no limit. And now you know all about time limits, video time limits, record time limits on DSLRs, which is not what I was originally planning on talking about for the past 5 minutes. What I was going to talk about is this week has been quite eventful for geeks, especially space geeks, because was it Wednesday? Checking my watch. No, it was Thursday. Thursday was July the 20th, the anniversary of the moon landing. And of course, you cannot celebrate the anniversary of the moon landing without hearing all the conspiracy theories. And I'll spare most of them because you know about them as well as I do at this point. That basically we never went to the moon. There's all these reasons why we never went to the moon. Look at the photographs. It doesn't add up. It doesn't line up. It was all staged on a big sound stage in Hollywood or whatever. It's bullcrap. The radiation in the Van Allen belts, which I've talked about on one of my very early shows. The radiation in the Van Allen belt would kill the astronauts. No, it wouldn't. No, because they don't sit in that radiation for a prolonged period of time. They blast right through it. It's perfectly healthy. You wouldn't want to do it every single day, but no. We went to the moon. So the dumbest theory that I've heard today about the moon landing was that the moon's not really there. That's one of the theories. That goes with the whole flat Earth theory that everything in the sky is just a freaking projected hologram. Give me a break. No, but the dumbest theory I heard today was that the moon was transported here. It was a structure that was transported here, kind of like the Death Star in Star Wars. That it's a structure that was transported here, and what we see, the moon in our sky, is just a big shield over the structure. It's a big cloak over the real structure that's there. And it all ties into the Freemasons and all sorts of Illuminati stuff. My goodness. And detractors are also talking about we didn't go to the moon because we can't do it today. Because the space shuttle can only go about 500 miles above the Earth, or whatever the exact figure is. And the moon is hundreds of thousands of miles away. So we never went to the moon because we can't duplicate it today. Oh my goodness. There was a reason the Saturn V rocket was stories and stories and stories and stories tall. There's a reason why it's the biggest machine, the biggest vehicle that humans have ever, space vehicle at least, that humans have ever created. It was to hold enough fuel to get to the moon. So no, NASA at least right now doesn't have a vehicle ready to go that can get us to the moon. And do you know why? There's nothing for us to do on the moon. We've had all the Apollo missions. We've done what we needed to do on the moon for now. I do think that in the future, that when we go to Mars, we do need to set up a moon base. At that point, we will have our vehicles ready to transport man and woman to the moon. But just saying that we can't do it today means that we never did it back in the 60s and 70s is nonsense. This is why we can't have nice things. We went to the moon, and my dad told a story, and I'm going to wrap up this segment. My dad told a story one time that, while he was in Vietnam walking through the jungle somewhere, knee deep in mud, that they heard, July 20th, 1969, that we had landed on the moon. So he's there, knee deep, waist deep in mud, looking up at the moon, thinking, how far we've gone and how far we have still yet to go as a human species. We're fighting these wars. Meanwhile, man is walking on the moon. Very polar opposites of the human condition, warfare and exploration. Well, I guess sometimes warfare is because of exploration. And I guarantee you, if we found a competing species, a species on a distant world that we could get to that was competing for resources, actually by that point, it might be kind of a Star Trek type future and peace might prevail, even though there's plenty of fights in Star Trek. I digress. This is going to be a packed show. There's lots of cool things to talk about, including humans could outrun a T-Rex, but we'll get into that. All over the place. More Geek Therapy Radio to come. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go hit it up. You guys are liking the page. I really appreciate that. So Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, and Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, where you can watch this beautiful radio show being recorded in real time. Not live, but real time. We'll be right back. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. More Geek Therapy Radio, GTR to come. Welcome to segment 2 of this week's GTR, Geek Therapy Radio, because geeks are sexy. There's also a little bit of a geek in all of us. Like I keep saying, that's the mission statement of the show. There's a geek in all of us. You listening right now who's just stumbled upon this show, you're a geek about something. I promise you. What gets your motor running? Maybe it's cars. Maybe it's Legos. Maybe you like painting. Maybe you like stitching. Maybe you like gardening. There's already a garden show on this radio cluster, Garden Line with Randy Lemon. Maybe you really like beer. And I don't mean just drinking beer, but brewing beer. There's a show right here on KPRC. What's on Tap Radio with James Simpson, all about beer. Maybe your geek thing is pop culture. Yeah, pop culture. There's Black Coffee Radio. They talk about all sorts of things over there. Justin and Craig. Listen to all these shows I'm plugging. Hope they're plugging my show. So anyways, welcome back, my sexy geeks. I, during the break, went to get some coffee, which you can see if you're watching this podcast on YouTube. And I'm going to push my French press down real slow and sultry like. push that hot water through them grounds. Get me some nice coffee. I just wanted to touch on a quick story real quick. Apparently SETI, what does the SETI stand for? Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that big radio telescope in Puerto Rico. For some reason, I was thinking it was in South America. Is Puerto Rico central? Down there, below us in the United States, there's this headline. I'm finding it on newatlas.com. Could mysterious radio signals be from ET? We've been hearing that for decades. These mysterious signals that SETI finds, that everyone thinks, oh, it's ET, and it's never ET. But then again, that's the point. I understand. That's the point of that big antenna, is to weed out these mysterious signals. The article goes on to say that it's a mysterious radio signal received by the observatory in Puerto Rico. But is it a message from another civilization in our own galaxy? Scientists at the Planetary Habitability Laboratory, PHL, say it's highly unlikely. Well, no crap. Every single thing we've heard from SETI has been highly unlikely. The movie Contact was pretty cool. I liked it. I like Contact. Remember when Contact came out? I remember thinking, I don't know if I should spoil a 20-year-old movie, but those wormhole devices that they built, those giant machines that were to send what's-her-face through space-time, where she like met her dad or whatever on that island. Pretty neat. But anyways, I remember something that stuck out to me as a kid, or maybe as a teenager. Like, this machine cost $250 billion to build. And I was like, $250 billion? The Earth will never have that much money to begin with. That was one of the crazy points of that movie, was like, what? $250 billion? $250 billion now. What's that? 250 billion? I was going to say it's nothing. It's not nothing. But in the scope of governments and of world monies, $250 billion for a wormhole device seems like a bargain. Sign me up. Put that ish on my Visa card. I will fund it. Put it on I will take the hit, world. If you want to build a wormhole device and it costs $250 billion, I will go into debt and default on my debt and come up with some sort of settlement with my debtors, or that who I owe debt to. I'll settle for $1,000. I'll take the $250 billion charge, and then I'll settle with them for $1,000. Win-win. We get to travel through wormholes to distant, places in our galaxy, and my credit is destroyed forever, but I'll take it. Did I say it's a win-win? It's not really a win-win. I'm still going to owe $1,000. Well, technically, I'd owe $250 billion. I digress. SETI hears new radio signals that every scientist in the world agrees is not likely to be extraterrestrials. Now, I personally do think that there are ETs out there. I do not think that we are alone in this universe. I think it is more preposterous to think that we are alone. And now, some types might say, what about the ramifications on religion? Would you stop believing what you believe if ET comes down? Nope, not at all. It would not change my religious views one way or the other. In fact, it would just strengthen my religious views to know for a fact that we are not alone in the universe. We are 6 minutes or whatever into the segment, and look, I am just now, boop, I've pressed the strainer down into my coffee. That's how you make the good stuff. Maybe 6 minutes is too long, but that's how I do it. And I'm going to pour my coffee here because I am a little bit of a coffee geek. Me and Eric Sharp Eric Sharp is an anchor over on News Radio 740 KTRH, our sister station. Him and I are a couple of fancy coffee boys, and we buy all sorts of different whole bean coffee. And I've got a grinder there in the kitchen, and every couple weeks or so, we walk in and we have new coffee. Hey, did you try my new coffee I brought in? Oh, no, I haven't tried it yet. We're all excited about it. We're just a couple of fancy coffee boys. Yeah, I'm a coffee geek, a little bit of a coffee geek. And that's just from my dad. I'm just like flat out. Like my dad drank a lot of coffee. My dad was in this business as well. So he made really good coffee. And the trick is half and half and honey. Although I'm using heavy whipping cream. Let's take a little sip. Oh my goodness, that's good. But anybody who knows me knows I need to put in some more honey. Honey's not sugar, so it's healthy, right? Pouring in the honey, honey goes in the coffee, makes the coffee good. People make fun of me all the time. Those who know me say I basically put more syrup in my milk than chocolate, or more syrup in my milk than the actual milk. That's not true. Well, maybe it's not so true anymore. Back in high school, I used to chug a 2-liter of Coke a day. That is the sign of a true nerd. If you ever went through a phase where you drank 2 freaking liters of soda a day. I mean, I would go to the gas station after school and just buy a 2-liter and just carry it around with me. So that's not even that is a 2-liter a day. That's like 2 liters before, just a few hours before bed. It's not like starting 2 liters, in the morning and then before you go to bed, drag it out over the course of a day. No, 2 liters of Coke in like 5 hours or whatever it was. Yeah, my dad's like, you are going to get diabetes. But luckily I grew out of that phase. So no diabetes yet. Knock on whatever this desk is made out of. Oh gosh, that's good. Oh my goodness gracious. A new exoplanet hunting camera is up and running in Chile. Let's find all them planets we can, because the more planets we find, the more odds that we'll find ET phone home. I am not going to video edit my finger glowing because that's too much. Can't do that. Okay, so an article, a story. You know what? No, just 9 minutes. This segment's over. This segment is over. Geeked out about coffee and some other things. Next segment, I'll talk about I could outrun T-Rex. Could you outrun T-Rex? I don't know. Maybe I'm faster than you. I'm average running speed. So apparently we can outrun T-Rex, but I'll get into that in the next segment. You are listening to Geek Therapy Radio, GTR. Geeks are sexy. There's a little geek in all of us. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, where you can go and watch these shows. Because sometimes I have cool devices. For instance, I know I'm at 10 minutes on this segment. Sorry, Ramon. I will show this device right now. I'm not going to show what brand it is because it really doesn't matter. But it's a battery-powered stirring thing. And on the radio, you can hear it. And I'm going to do it right on the mic. Oh, that sounds great. I guarantee you that sounds great. So yeah, these battery-powered handheld mixers, if you love coffee at all, or chocolate milk, or any sort of drink or cocktail, whatever, these things are awesome. So you can't see that on the radio. You can hear it. Use your theater of the mind, but on the YouTube, you can go see what I'm talking about. These things cost a few bucks, and I highly, highly recommend them. Pick them up wherever you see them. Stuff them in a stocking. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Hit all the social medias. This is Geek Therapy Radio everywhere. So just Google Geek Therapy Radio and my beautiful face will show up and you can hear my beautiful voice on GTR. We'll be right back. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Stick around. Segment 3 of Geek Therapy Radio, GTR. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for this evening, or this day, or this morning, depending on, well, if you're listening to it on terrestrial radio or extraterrestrial radio, it's probably evening. on planet Earth at least, if these radio waves are making it out to another antenna somewhere in space. Hello, Gleep Glorps. Remember, that's what geeks are called? Gleep Glorps? Going OG. Oh my goodness! I just realized this is episode 20 of Geek Therapy Radio. And okay, full disclosure, I'm recording this Thursday, July 20th. The moon landing anniversary. That's cool. Some crappy stuff happened today too. I was gonna say OJ got parole. That's not the crappy thing I'm talking about. I'm not even saying that's crappy. That's not what the show's about. Although it is interesting that OJ was paroled today, July 20th, Thursday, just hours after Ford announces new details of the new Bronco, the new 2020 Bronco. That's funny. I'm sorry. I know that the show's not about that. But you know what? It's about geeking out about cars too, even though the new Ford Bronco looks freaking horrible and will probably bomb and bomb hard unless a certain celebrity makes it famous again. But that's not even true either, because 2 years after the car chase, the famous car chase, was that 1994 or 93? I think it was 94. A lot of stuff happened in 94. 2 years after that car chase, Ford discontinued the Bronco. Eric says he would buy and rock the crap out of a white Bronco and drive it around, or be chauffeured in it, if you catch my drift. Anyways, July 20th, moon landing, and this is the 20th episode of Geek Therapy Radio. I got too witty on pop culture topics right there. You know what? I don't apologize, because it's funny. Let's get on to the topic I was teasing about, T-Rexes. And this is a cool topic to me. I love dinosaurs. I mean, really, the affair started in 93 with Jurassic Park. That movie, while it scared me, because I was just a wee tyke. No, I was 10 years old. So I was a wee boy. It scared me, but it was also the coolest movie I had ever seen, other than Back to the Future. So I had the Jurassic Park bedroom, like curtains on the windows. I had the Jurassic Park bed sheets. Other people had Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, and Star Trek. I had Jurassic Park everything. I remember my aunt. It's not really throwing her on the bus. I was like 13 years old or 14 years old, and for my birthday, she got me a Jurassic Park t-shirt that's clearly for an 8-year-old. And I remember feeling kind of bad. I was like, oh, I feel bad for her that I'm not into that like that anymore. And this shirt is for an 8-year-old, and I am literally almost twice the age of that. But you know what? The funnier thing about that was I was not bummed to get it. It was a good gift. It was a good get. I was happy to get that Jurassic Park t-shirt, and it was so small, obviously, because it's for an 8-year-old, and I was like 13 or 14. I still wore it at least once. Looked ridiculous, but and I didn't even wear it for her. Like, you know, your relatives give you something, and you're supposed to like wear it the next time you see them, make them feel good, whatever. No, I just wore it on my own, just for fun. It was uncomfortable, but I was baller status. It was an awesome shirt. I was a teenager. So anyways, I love dinosaurs, and I dream about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. I don't dream about dinosaurs. I don't like chores, but I dream about dinosaurs all the time. It's hard to do dinosaurs if I had little T-Rex arms. I definitely couldn't fold laundry. Listen to me with the zingers today. So this story is that scientists have put a 3D model of the T-Rex into their systems, into their computers, and have done the math and run the simulations to see. We used to previously think that the T-Rex could run like 30 miles an hour. If you watch Jurassic Park, there's quite a few scenes where the T-Rex is in full tilt, namely the Jeep chasing scene. You want to go toe-to-toe on Star Wars stuff? I'll go toe-to-toe with you on Jurassic Park stuff. I'll go toe-to-toe with you on Back to the Future stuff. So yeah, the scene in the Jeep where his leg is broken and they're trying to outrun the T-Rex, and the T-Rex can run like apparently 30 to 40 miles an hour, whatever. Well, there's new data to suggest and pretty much put the nail in the coffin that the T-Rex could not run that fast. In fact, the T-Rex, a human, could outrun a T-Rex, which is really good information to know next time you're outrunning a T-Rex. And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee because this is seriously like the best coffee I've ever made on Geek Therapy Radio. And it's that Hawaiian stuff that Eric bought. Oh, Eric, thank you. If you're listening to this right now in the newsroom, when you should be writing stories, come in here and kiss me on the cheek, but not really. Even though we are less than lovers, but more than friends. Why do I keep getting off track of the T-Rex story? So the T-Rex could basically be outrun by a human, which is good news next time you're being chased by a T-Rex. This is interesting to me because my geek brain goes on these tangents. Since I dream about T-Rexes all the time, how is this going to affect my dreams? Because in my dreams, I usually get eaten by the T-Rex. And maybe this is something for a psychologist to figure out, but I always get eaten by the T-Rex, and every time I get eaten by the T-Rex, I'm just like, what a way to go. It's scary, but it's not scary. I wake up just like, that was awesome. Like if you had a checklist, if you had a choice, you could select, your own demise. Eaten by a T-Rex, that's probably a pretty BA way to go. My number one way to go would just be to fall asleep when I'm 150 years old and not wake up. Well loved by my family. That's number one way to go. 150 years old, fall asleep, have the best dream in the world, and then go meet whoever my wife is. Go meet her. Take her on a date somewhere in the galaxy, looking at a million suns. How romantic. My second choice, other than that, would be meteorite. Like a basketball-sized meteorite. Just be driving along or whatever, walking down the street. Boom! Vaporized. What would the headlines be? Man gets killed by a meteor. Awesome. Man gets eaten by a T-Rex. That is just the coolest. If I got eaten by a T-Rex, I want that T-Rex at my funeral with a medal around its neck. Because that's just the coolest way to go ever. So, not only did the T-Rex have its short, teeny, tiny little arms, but apparently it couldn't do much more than walk. And the speed was limited due to its size and weight. Yeah. If they reanimate dinosaurs, if they bring them back to life, which I really hope they do, I would be the first one at Jurassic Park. I would spend my life savings to be the first one to see a real live dinosaur. I hope they can accept $20. Anyways, yeah, so I guess the animal was way too heavy and cumbersome to do much more than walk, which that poses a whole lot of other questions. How did it hunt? If it couldn't run or chase prey too much, how did it hunt? Use camouflage? How do you hide? If your strategy was to surprise your prey and you weigh 8 tons, how do you hide? So this whole theory that T-Rex could not run very fast, could be outrun by a human, which probably averages like 10 miles an hour, 9 or 10, the average human running. Not a sprint, but a run. Okay, I'm going to say sprinting. Probably 12 miles an hour. For me anyways. I don't know. 12 to 15 maybe for me is probably about average. I don't know. I didn't look it up. But if a T-Rex is running after me, I'm sprinting. I'm at least sprinting faster than whoever's next to me. Just like you do with a bear. And that's the story about how T-Rexes can't run as fast as we previously thought. And it's also the uplifting tale of next time you see a T-Rex, you can get pretty close to it. You can maybe boop its snoot and then run away. Give it a good firm smack on the butt, just like a horse. Just don't stand right behind it. Don't stand directly behind a T-Rex for many reasons. A beast that weighs 8 tons could probably kill you with his horse eggs. I'll just say. That's a good note to end the segment on. More Geek Therapy Radio to come. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator, for better or worse. Just having fun with this show. I don't have any guests this week. I'm working on a NASA show. I've got a friend. Her name is Monica, and she's going to take me on like this private tour of NASA, of the Johnson Space Center. And it's going to be amazing. Although I cannot bring any recording devices, sadly. So I'll just have to jot down notes and let you all know what I've discovered. If I find little green men, I'll see what I can say about that. But more Geek Therapy Radio to come up. More Geek Therapy Radio to come. I'm Johnny Hamburger, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. What an efficient way to plug the social media. We'll be right back. Stick around. Eric, my goodness, this coffee's good. What is the deal? Full disclosure, how I make my coffee. I know I said half and half in honey, and I use a French press. But I also take one single piece of a Hershey's bar, Hershey's dark chocolate, and before I pour the coffee in, I pour the half and half, in this case heavy whipping cream, and then I put that little piece of chocolate down in there, pop the half and half in the chocolate into the microwave for 20 seconds just to warm it up, melt the chocolate a little bit. Then I put in the coffee, then I put in the honey, and I mix thoroughly, and it is just delectable. So I came across this funny story. Oh, I'm Johnny Hamburger, by the way. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio, where geeks are sexy, and there's a little geek in all of us. I came across this funny story on Ars Technica. It brings back some nostalgia for all my gamers out there. Even non-gamers, maybe people who have used to play video games, but now they don't anymore. Remember 1993, not just Jurassic Park, but Doom came out. Doom, D-O-O-M, the game that none of our moms let us play. I do remember it was freeware. It was one of the first, well, it wasn't one of the first freewares, but Doom was released, and you were encouraged to copy the freeware version and give it to all your friends. So I remember back in 93, the hunt on the playground was for someone who had a computer capable of running Doom. Remember, this is 93. This is even before Pentium. So we all had 386s and 486 Packard Bells, 4 megabytes of RAM if you were just baller status, a 1X CD-ROM drive, which the CDs weren't just put right in the drive. You had to have this clamshell jewel case that you put the CD in to make it a cartridge, and then you put the whole cartridge into the computer. So anyways, Doom came out. The freeware version was on 4 diskettes, 4 floppy disks. So the hunt was on the playground, not just for somebody who had a computer that would run Doom, and you had to sift through the liars, the fibbers, and the liars who said, I have Doom. No, you don't. You've got a Commodore 64. Get out of here, you liar. So a kid who had a computer that could run it, and then you had to patch together the discs, because you'd have one friend be like, I've got Doom, the discs, I have disc 1 and 2. Another friend would be like, I've got number 4. You got to find the kid who had number 3. So you had to come up with a complete set of the 4 discs to install Doom, and pray that you had like 5 or 6 megabytes of free hard disk space. Back in the days when like 20 megabytes of hard drive was pretty good. I forget what our HP had. Or it wasn't even HP. It was Packard Bell. It was before Hewlett Packard merged. It's a Packard Bell. Anyways, it's a funny story about Doom, and I got to keep this segment short because I've gone way too long as usual. And I'm going to read it from this article in Ars Technica. I'm just going to quote it. What's the title of it is Doom's cover art had one secret, and John Romero just spilled it. So you remember the cover art in Doom, the Marine standing on top of that hill shooting down at the hordes of demons. It's a very iconic cover art. So I'm going to read an excerpt from this article because it's funny. And here it is starting now. Quote, original cover artist Don Punchatz came to ID Software's Dallas area offices. And let me interject here real quick. Texas was a hotbed for software and computer development. Before Silicon Valley, it was Texas. And it still is, well, to a lesser extent, it's Texas. It kind of fell off in the 90s. But anyways, at this time, ID Software, Dallas offices. Let me go back to the start. Original cover artist Don Punchatz came to the ID Software's Dallas area offices in 1993 with a male model in tow. Romero writes, along with a professional camera, ID staffers were on hand to direct the photo shoot, and it was meant to frame the lead portion of the cover that Punchatz would eventually draw. The male model grabbed a plasma gun toy and started posing, shirtless for some reason. Don asked us for suggestions, so I started telling him that the Marine was going to be attacked by an infinite amount of demons, Romero writes. It would be cool if he was on a hill and firing down into them. The model was holding the gun in various positions, and none of them were interesting to me. After 10 minutes of unsatisfying model poses, Romero says that he decided to rip his shirt off. Again, no explanation why. Take the gun and pose as Doom's cover Marine. The hired model played along. Did I pronounce it right? The hired model played along by faking as one of the cover's demons and grabbing either his arms or legs for a range of attack-like shots. I aimed the gun in a slightly different direction and told Don, "This is what I'm talking about," Romero writes. The winning shot resembled the arm grab image seen in the above illustration, which I'll put on the YouTube podcast. The above illustration, though sadly, Romero failed to prove his story with a photo. We have reached out to the Romero family in hopes of changing that. End quote for the story in Ars Technica. I should give the author. The author is Sam. I can't even pronounce this. Sam Makovech. Sam Makovech, Machkovech. So yeah, the cover art for Doom was very iconic. And the reason why it's iconic for me is, again, I wasn't allowed to play it. There is no way my mom would let me play something like Doom. No way. Although I do remember later on as a teenager having Doom 2 and dial-up internet. And with Doom 2, maybe with Doom 1, I don't know. But with Doom 2, you could definitely play over a modem with a friend, multiplayer. And it was awesome. It was so cool. You had to go into Doom setup, and basically you had to call your friend before... You had to call your friend on the phone before you actually called him with a modem. I would call up my friend Nathan, and I'd say, "Nathan, okay, don't touch your phone for the next 5 minutes. Hang up and don't touch your phone for 5 minutes. My computer will dial yours." You guys remember that? Do you remember that? The good old days of multiplayer. You know, I love Rocket League, and I love how seamless online multiplayer has become with this high-speed internet. But nothing is as magical as back in the day using that dial-up with a phone line. It was like magic. You had to enter in your friend's phone number, and then you hit enter, and it would dial. I'm not going to play the tones because they're super annoying. But yeah, this story just brought up so many memories about Doom. Let's skip that story about the juicer. It's stupid. They charged way too much for their juicer. Somebody back engineered it and discovered that it was just basically a lot of pointless engineering. They cut the price $200 and half the company is laid off. The Hyperloop hits a milestone. It got up to 70 miles an hour and levitated for 5.3 seconds. That's Elon Musk's challenge to designers around the world to create a new infrastructure for high-speed commuting. And on that note, Musk also says that he claims to have gotten the green light verbally from Washington to create a Hyperloop link from New York City to Washington. I assume this means Washington, D.C. Wait. Yeah, it has to be Washington, D.C. to change the commute time to just 29 minutes. That's awesome, but it's just a verbal confirmation Musk has told us. So a verbal confirmation, a verbal agreement is far from being pen and paper, far from a shovel in the ground. The last cool story I'll say is for pilots and anybody interested in the space program, anybody interested in aeronautics. NASA has started to upload hundreds of historic experimental flight videos to YouTube. That's awesome. I'm going to repeat that again. NASA has started to upload hundreds of experimental flight videos to YouTube. So all these prototype planes from 40s, 50s, 60s, and onward, that's going to be really interesting to binge watch on YouTube. I am super stoked about that. And on that note, that's the end of Geek Therapy Radio for this week. This 40-something minutes has flown by. I was worried because I didn't have a guest this week. I was like, what am I going to talk about? Nope, I did it. I'd done it again, and I'd done it again for too long. I've overshot the mark. I'm Johnny Hemberger. I was your mental curator for this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, whenever you're listening to the show. If you're listening to it live right now on KPRC 950, thank you so much for listening to actual radio. I like broadcasting. It's fun to me. If you're listening on the podcast, awesome. Thank you very much. I love all of you. If you're watching on YouTube, double thumbs up to the video camera. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I love all my geeks. I love all of you. Please share the love with each other. Share the love with yourself. Be good to yourself. Love yourself. Love others. Do something good for you. Do something good for others. Just a little thing. Hold a door. You might be having a really bad day, but here's what happens when you hold the door for somebody else. You make them feel good. You make you feel good. It's amazing how doing something nice for somebody else makes you feel good. The love you make is equal to the love you take. Did one of the Beatles say that? I think so. I'm Johnny Hemberger. Join me next week for more Geek Therapy Radio. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. Geek Therapy Radio on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram. These podcasts are available on iTunes and Spreaker and all over the place. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you and you will hear me next week. Adios.